NANO Dimension has seen its fair share of growth in the stock market in the past couple of months. With this video, I intend to uncover details about the company and understand the future as where it might be heading, its potential for growth, and what's going on right now with the stock, why it's rising in price, and whether it's just a little bit of hype or it's really something that we should be looking at. Today, we're going to look at what the company is and how it got here from its initial IPO in 2016 at around $70 a share to $14 a share today. Then we'll look at what the future may hold for the company and understand their potential and possible innovations that they could be coming up with that could change the industry. And finally, we'll conclude with some final thoughts on the company and whether it's a good option to invest in. With that being said, we can begin with the video. Okay, so NANO Dimensions was founded in 2012 with a focus on making 3D printed electronics. NANO Dimensions' product proposition was to combine a couple of technologies which were quite innovative at the time. This was combining 3D printing with 3D software and nanomaterials. Nanomaterials are very small materials, as you may have guessed. They're between 1 and 100 nanometers. That's really small. A nanoparticle is around 10 nanometers and DNA as well. But imagine that, just for a second, if you were able to print electronics the size of DNA, the possibilities are endless. You can modify DNA, make medical nanobots for the human body. You can do incredible things, electronics that are invisible to the human eye. Now, Nano Dimensions isn't really there yet, but it is something to consider and could potentially be some of the uses for this technology. This is a bit scary but exciting at the same time, but we'll explore this a little bit more in the next section. So what are NANO Dimension's offerings? The company's first 3D printer was sold in 2015. This 3D printer was worth over $200,000 in addition to another $50,000 in nanomaterials. So what's so special about these 3D printers that make them worth $250,000? Well, first of all, it's the first and only 3D printer in the world that is able to 3D print through additive manufacturing PCBs. But in addition to that, these 3D printers can make PCBs like no others. Because of the way it works, because of the additive manufacturing, the limitations are much less than with other methods. You can print them in weird shapes and forms. You can make little loop-de-loops and coils and all kinds of things that are just not as easy to do with other methods. And in some cases, impossible. This 3D printer for PCBs can do things that no other printer can do. But according to NANO Dimension, there's another benefit to this. For innovative companies that are new and doing interesting things, sending out orders for PCBs could be a bad option. Because of the confidentiality of these new innovations, perhaps sending out your design is a bad idea as they could steal it. So, NANO Dimensions proposes that this is a solution to that. To be able to produce PCBs in-house and prototype without having to send out your design to people outside of the company. But $250,000 is a lot of money. However, relatively to a regular printed circuit board manufacturing assembly, it's, cheaper. Typically, if you're buying used equipment, you can probably get it. According to some estimates, you could probably start producing PCBs for around $400,000. However, if you want brand new equipment, it's going to be upwards of $1 million at least to start up a PCB manufacturing assembly. I don't know. So relatively speaking, it is significantly less expensive, but still $250,000 is a lot. Fortunately, NANO Dimension is now producing smaller and more affordable printers. I say affordable relatively. They're still like $70,000. NANO Dimensions has now developed their Dragonfly, which is, according to them, the first ever desktop PCB additive manufacturing unit. Now this is quite interesting, and if NANO Dimensions could continue to reduce the price of their printers, eventually perhaps even enthusiasts could have printers in their home. And this is where the company would probably explode, but we'll look at that in a little bit. Right now, let's explore why the company went down in price. At some point, it was over $70 a share. Over the years, the stock has dropped significantly. Right now, going back up a little bit, but why did it drop in the first place? What happened? Well, I did a lot of research, and I don't know if I just didn't come across the right thing or anything, but I couldn't find anything. The only thing I was able to find is that the co-chairman was accused of fraud, money laundering, and securities offenses. However, these were just accusations and were later dismissed. However, it doesn't seem like that could have been enough to send this company down the path of losing value. My best guess for what happened is that the company just lost popularity. Over time, as their innovations were few and far between, people just didn't really find value in the company anymore and started to pull out slowly over the years. That's just a theory, I'm not really sure, but now as we approach 2021 and they begin to release their Dragonfly, their new unit, the stock once again begins to rise. So maybe just people lost interest and now are gaining interest again. If you have any insight on this, make sure to leave it down in the comments below. Now, let's take a look at the future of the company. Now, once again, I wasn't able to find any information on this. The future of the company isn't very clear. There isn't any set path or new innovations that they may be set on producing for the next couple of years. Their goal was to produce the Dragonfly, which is now upcoming, but there isn't anything more really to that. And the company's likely working on things behind the scenes, but it's likely not anything too game-changing, honestly, because I believe that this Dragonfly system that they're coming out with is probably the bleeding edge of their abilities and their technology that they have right now. This means that we probably won't be expecting anything massive or new from the company in the next couple of years. That's not to say the company does not have potential or that there's not an interesting proposition here, because while this is the bleeding edge of the technology that they have right now, things move extremely fast. I believe that within 5, 6, maybe 7 years, they could develop something inexpensive enough for the average enthusiast. And this is backed up by the increasing demand. I doubt that anytime soon we're going to be needing less electronics. It's clear that trends are moving towards more and more electronics, everything being more and more digitalized. And as that happens, understanding electronics and how they work becomes more of a norm, more of a necessity for the average person. And with this comes a desire to make your own things. And prototyping with these 3D printers that can make PCBs could be an interesting proposition for the future. And I have no doubt that someday there will be a cheaper option for 3D printers like we have plastic 3D printers today. But for now and in the short term, it is very interesting what the company has. For a lot of companies that are doing new and innovative things that want to prototype in-house in a faster, more efficient way with more security so that they don't have to be sending out their top secret designs, this is an interesting proposition. And relatively speaking, the $100,000 price tag is in the realm of okay for companies that are innovating. However, it's by no means anything for the average consumer. Okay, so final thoughts and conclusions. But first of all, disclaimer, this is for entertainment purposes only. And with that being said, I believe the company has a lot of potential. There is a lot for the company to do coming up in the next couple of decades. As I mentioned earlier, I believe that the future is having them be inexpensive enough for the average person to own one in their home. Now, this may not be for everybody, and you may think that's ridiculous. How many PCBs does one need to print as an individual? Well, right now, the large majority of people do not need to be printing their own PCBs. Especially because we have things like Arduinos, Raspberry Pis, things like that we can just code straight onto that and we're done, ready to go. However, things are moving towards a more electronic world where this understanding of electronics and how things work in that realm becomes more and more necessary. And perhaps not in the next 10 years, maybe not 20 years, but eventually it'll be such a basic field of knowledge that everybody will have to understand it. And with that, most people will likely want to have their own PCB printer to make adjustments and make things with their electronics, as in the future, everything will be moving towards more and more and more electronic things. We'll probably have implants in our brains that are communicating with the internet and all kinds of things like that. Probably have bionic eyes and arms and hearts. The future is an interesting and scary place, but there's no doubt that electronics are going to be in more and more demand as we move forward. But with that being said, I don't really have a solid opinion on the company. There's just too much to consider and too much volatility with the company that I'm not confident with my opinion over the company. I don't understand it enough to really make a decision on whether I think it's a good investment or not. Personally, I will not be investing in Nano Dimension. The potential is there, and I believe they could become something great. However, the assurance that the company won't just fall on their back tomorrow is little. I'm not super confident in the strength of the company. Nonetheless, I don't really know what to say about it. Anyway, with that being said, thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to subscribe and give the video a like, and I'll see you guys next time.